Hey everyone, and welcome to this video where I will be looking at potentially the worst PR campaign I have ever seen. Because after the Karen Read trial ended with the great outcome for Karen Read, that she was only found guilty in an OUI, we saw what was probably some of the worst. Let's tell our story because we are the victims here. I used to be in politics, and one of the things you are taught in politics is if you have a bad story, you have to get ahead of it. And there's a few ways you can get ahead of it. One, try to bury it with an even worse story. So if you said something stupid, try and find a time where someone else said something more stupider, and you'll slip into the media and say, yeah, well, I did say A, but I really meant B. That's one of the ways to do it. Another way is just lose connection on your phone and write it out while the bad stuff happens. And the last one is go in the media and try and defend yourself in a way where everyone will look at that interview and say, what the hell? The Alberts chose option 3.
The justice system has let us down at every turn. And yesterday was the final letdown. And that's why we're here, because there's nobody left to stand up for us.
I think the reason we all stayed quiet is because we were just witnesses. This is a thing that we had nothing to do with.
We did the civic duty, came and told the truth, and that's it. People turn this.
What you just saw there was two men trying to turn a bad story into a good story. We are just witnesses. We did our civil duty. We did nothing wrong. I never went into any of the who could, maybe, what happened, because it would be pure speculation. We don't have evidence presented in court. But what we just saw there didn't come off as people who were hurt by the justice system, because you were just witnesses. The justice system didn't hurt you in any way. The justice system was there to figure out, did Karen Read kill John O'Keefe? And 12 people said no. That you got your fifis hurt because of all the shenanigans going on in your house, that's on you. The way you portrayed yourself in the first trial, that's on you. The way you have treated anyone who have asked you maybe a little over-the-top questions, maybe some poignant questions, that's on you. You're not the victims here. Trying to make yourself the victims just turns you into even bigger A-balls.
This thing into a tailgate party, it looked like some days. Board games, cornhole, cookouts. This is a guy that was murdered. And it's atrocious for that family.
Well, the theories.
I never saw tailgate partying at the Karen Read trial. What I saw was every day Kim and Joe and Mary looking at a trial run by a justice system that wasn't out for justice, but was out to get the girl. For you to describe it as a tailgate party when these people stood out the last day on verdict watch, waiting in silence for the verdict, when the defense team, instead of going out trying to make hullabaloo, turned this signal, this sign, into a way to communicate with them to keep it quiet. Why did you have to lie about how this group is? Again, we all saw it with our own eyes. But sadly, the McAlberts apparently has a little bit different view of the truth. Signing I love you doesn't mean tailgate. Signing I love you isn't playing cornhole. Signing I love you isn't trying to interfere with the jury. Everyone was nice and quiet. But again, it just don't fit the narrative of the McAlberts.
What they've done is they've dehumanized us to the sense where we're not real people. We're almost like caricatures. We're pawns.
I don't know what's wrong with English and Massachusetts, but caricature is not a real word. You mean caricatures. And yes, this interview turned you into caricatures because you sit there holier than thou, trying to say, we didn't do nothing. We are just here for John O'Keefe. But why did you act the way you did at the town hall meetings in front of the D&E pizza? You turned yourself into caricatures. It's all on you, Chris. But you don't really believe what you're saying, I think.
I'm just sad for John's family and what happened yesterday. And I feel like they didn't get justice for him, and our lives just changed forever.
The family will never get justice. Do you know why, Coco? Because no one looked into the death of John O'Keefe. Sadly, people were way too busy trying to protect their own behinds. Especially some people who made up timelines, who said, hey, make sure they tell them he never went into the house. People who were on text threads, kind of making up a story. Coco, you're not the victim here. John O'Keefe is the victim of bad police work. You can wonder why the police did such a bad job, but you are not the victim. There's an old saying, you reap what you sow.
John ever come in the house?
Never. No,
You never saw John O'Keefe in the house, right?
Never.
never.
I don't do body language. I don't believe that you can read body language without knowing people. I know a few people have already did a body analysis on this little clip. But if I was a person who believed in body language analysis, I would look at that and say, that didn't look comfortable for any of them to answer that question.
Gabe, who is Nicole's sister, barged into their bedroom.
She was just
Upset.
upset, and I immediately thought something had happened to one of her children or one of my children, because why else is she in my bedroom at 6:30 in the morning right now?
And what did she tell you?
She said, John's out front. I think John's dead out front. I said, what the are you talking about, Jen? And I'm like, I didn't know.
You still didn't piece it
I
together.
didn't understand what she was talking about, because why would John be out front of my house?
Serves Ian.
Maybe because he was at a party at your house the day before. Maybe because you invited him to your house. But anyone still believes that a 30-year veteran of the police force sleeps with his door open, with his German Shepherd in the house, and he didn't hear anything until his sister broke into his bedroom, where Coco, the good soccer mom, was lying there thinking, oh, it must be Bright Jr. something happened to. It just smelled wrong.
Tees on your front. Take a look.
I'm not a Canton police officer. I'm a Boston police officer.
And we all know, if someone tells you there is a dead person on your front lawn, the first thing you do is look up, where is my jurisdiction? Because, hey, you don't want to interfere with anything. Again, does it make sense in a real world?
Was just woken up out of a cold sleep from hanging out the night before. By the time I came downstairs, the police were already in my house. John was already gone. There was nobody to save. I would have taken a bullet for John O'Keefe because he was a fellow cop. That's the most ridiculous.
Never look into Brian Albert's story with fellow cops if you want to believe that part of the interview.
Question that people always ask. It makes zero sense. What am I supposed to do? Run out front in my underwear and start running yellow tape around the fire hydrant?
So much is
No, but what you could have done was ask the officers saying, what the hell happened? How's John? Where's Karen? What can I do? Can I do anything? Do you want to take a tour around the house? You could have done a lot of things, but what did you do? You shut up like an oyster. You got everyone together. Your wife sat down with, not your wife, Jen McCabe, sorry. Coco didn't do this. Your sister-in-law sat down with Carrie and made a timeline. You as a cop should have said, that's not how you do an investigation. That's not how you prepare for an interview. First of all, you all need to go to the police station, be on tape, because this is really important. Jen, you're telling me you heard her ask you to Google this. She said she hit him. This needs to be on the record. That's probably what most police officers did. What did you do? You inserted yourself into every single interview done with your family members and the cohorts. Well, I wasn't in the room. There's a lot of suspicious activity if you want to believe in a collusion to hide facts that day. I'm not saying that happened, but wouldn't a 30-year veteran who would take a bullet for his fellow cop make sure that the crappy local PD didn't forget to write down all the information, forget to get recordings of all the statements? So you now, 3 years later, have had 6 different explanations to what anyone heard, saw, or did that morning. But what did you do? None of that. You closed your door, you got everyone together, and the group chat shows a little bit different picture than a guy who would take a bullet for his fellow cop.
has been made about that Google search that morning. Was it at 6 a.m. or was it at 6:27 a.m.? How long to die in the cold? What's your answer?
She asked me to do it at outside of Fairview at 6:20, whatever it was. Doesn't matter how much I say about it, people will not believe it.
The group knows.
First of all, we all have our own beliefs about that phone call. Again, I don't do body language, but why does she have to look to Brian Albert before she answers that question? Why did she talk so little? She's the main witness in this case. She's the one who was there all the time. Bri was the guy talking a lot in this interview. Why? I don't know. And Dateline, when you're doing these high-profile interviews and you have access to such an important group of witnesses, at least get it right. There was never any talk about if the Google search was at 6 or 6:27. It's a pivotal moment in this case, 2:27 or at 6 in the morning. You should at least do your homework. I know we all grifters, but at least us grifters online have to know the facts, because our chat will punish us if we get basic facts wrong in this case.
For 2 years where Chloe is. The state shared it with them.
So if they wanted to take DNA,
Get down.
That got a little cut up, but they're saying that the defense knew where Chloe was for 2 years. And again, this talking head from the media says, so they could just have taken DNA. No, because there would be no DNA to match it against, because the police effed up the investigation. I know all the aunties will talk about there's no DNA found on his arm. Well, if you don't look for stuff, you don't find stuff. And why didn't they produce Chloe? Why didn't the Commonwealth produce Chloe? Why didn't the Commonwealth bring someone from the defense team say, just to make sure, what we know is Chloe is now living in Vermont. They can't really tell you where because they just have some medical records, and because I'm not saying she's in witness protection, but she changed her name to Cora because you always change the name of a 7-year-old dog. I joked about Chloe being in witness protection, and now she goes by the name Cora and is a 7-pound Pomeranian. But apparently the defense didn't want to look into it. Well, they didn't need to, because the evidence spoke for itself. The Commonwealth probably needed to bring Cora to the trial.
You get the press, and it's like, but this is the town we like grew up in. Like, we didn't do anything wrong. We all contributed to our town. We love our town. Why should we have to go anywhere?
The justice system has.
And we end with a sob. We didn't do anything wrong. We love our town. Said by the man who did what? And hid for 30 hours to make sure that everything would be clean. Said by the man who sits on the Canton Select Board, even though he does so much for the city, he didn't pay taxes. If you want to get ahead of a story, especially a bad story, you don't go on TV and act like this. You do a sob story. You don't bring your entire family. You don't sit there like, we didn't do nothing, when we have heard how you act in 2 trials, more than 60 days in court, where we learned about how the McAlbert family really is. I know you want to portray yourself as pillars of the community, good cops, and soccer moms. But that's not how you come off when you're eyeballing witnesses, when you are yelling at journalists, and when nothing you say really makes sense. I'm pretty sure they believe this was a masterpiece. And of course, it's cut to shit by a news station that doesn't know anything about it. But this isn't how you run PR. This is what you do to try and throw a blanket on the fire. But sadly, you come off looking even worse than when you started.